Josh Hunter here at Beast Wrestling Reviews, here to bring you that Raw review from last night, August 31st. And this last night's Raw was kind of boring to watch. It had like its moments, but for the most part, it really wasn't that exciting. Nothing really got me like off my feet or got me pumped up to see Night of Champions for in 3 weeks. Last night's Raw really wasn't nothing special, but I mean it had its moments. The matches were, what they were, and this is start. Sting opens Raw, and which kind of you could kind of expect after what happened the week before. And one thing that's weird though is you kind of forget that sometimes when you see Sting and he is the face paint, and he has like the creepy appearance and the music and all that stuff, and you kind of forget like, and when he starts talking that he sounds like a normal person, and it just always kind of catches me off guard, as to where like he's always compared to the Undertaker, right? And Undertaker always has that deep, creepy, like dead man voice, as to where Sting just talks normal. But but he opens Raw. He's talking about having the match at Night of Champions with Seth Rollins, and he talked about WrestleMania 31. He pushed Triple H to his limits. Triple H pushed him to his. But the difference is that Seth Rollins is no Triple H. He will never be as good as Triple H. He makes a mockery of the WWE title. He, compares himself to these legends that he will never be as great as, and that's basically the promo. And he would say a few more things, but and then that was basically the open for Raw, and nothing more than they would go into like a backstage segment right after with Seth Rollins and Stephanie. Like a little bit of Seth Rollins' rebuttal, like talking about the statue that Seth Rollins still wants, and Stephanie saying, I hate to agree with Sting, but he is right. You are not as good as Triple H right now, and all that stuff. But maybe one day you will be. And I don't get why Triple H was like really brought into this in terms of like this whole angle between Sting and Seth Rollins. Like, what does Triple H have to do with this? Like, I get the relation between Seth Rollins and Triple H, their their little group with the Authority, and then Sting having the match with them at WrestleMania. But at the end of the day, I just don't get, like, is that what this? Besides, it being for the WWE title and Seth kind of disrespecting the legends, is that what this angle is going to be about? Is Seth Rollins proving to everyone that he is better than Triple H, that he is greater than everyone, he is the man? Because if so, that sounds really boring. The fact that Triple H got dragged into this, and then he wasn't even there on Raw to say anything or to respond or do or anything. And it's kind of like, okay, a few months ago at WrestleMania, Sting and Triple H hated each other. Sting comes out, and then they had the handshake at the end of the match, but still, then Sting comes out and says how great Triple H is, and Seth Rollins will never be like that. It was kind of weird to me. The open was kind of weird to me, but then after that, we would have our first match, Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev again. And this is a problem that, a lot of people have been talking about, and that I would have to agree with, because this is a problem that I have too, is that Raw and SmackDown just keep putting on the same exact matches that we have on pay-per-views, that we have the week before on Raw. Like, how many times have we seen Rusev and Dolph Ziggler now? In a way, it kind of makes some sense to have Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev again, just because, at SummerSlam, the match ended in a double countout. Nobody won. It was a draw, basically. So in a way, like, to have this match. But and then again, the commentators, Dolph Ziggler and Rusev themselves never even mentioned that the match ended in a double countout. So, and that's why, you know, this rivalry is continuing. And like, even if they just said that, like, okay, the match ended in a double countout, so that's why, you know, where you got to go at it again and, you know, have a true winner. And, you know, all that stuff. And then you bring in, you know, the Lana and Summer Rae into the equation, which is basically what this whole storyline is about anyway. And it just kind of, but still at the same time, but take that fact away, that the fact I didn't even mention at SummerSlam that it ended in a double countout, which I think is something simple, and it continues the story, and at least you have a reason that they're continuing to have matches, is because there was no winner at SummerSlam. But then, and then you have Lana and Summer Rae, but then this match didn't show any of that, but like, the match was good for what it was. The match was good. I didn't hate the match. I mean, like I've said before, I really don't think Dolph Ziggler, you know, really ever has bad matches. He doesn't always have, you know, WrestleMania amazing matches, but I mean, like the Shawn Michaels of the generation, like people say. He always has a good match no matter who he's with or working with. And so this match goes on for what I want to say, like maybe 10 minutes, and then the match has a stupid finish. Summer Rae gets involved, and then Lana would come, and you know, they would get into a little cat fight again, and then get pulled apart by Dolph Ziggler, and then that was it. That was the finish to that match, was continuing the thing with Lana and Summer Rae and Rusev, and it's come to a point where, okay, either you're going to have Lana wrestle or you're not, because at this point, you're going to wait too long and nobody's going to care no more. And, I mean, if you're going to have Lana wrestle and wrestle against Summer Rae, then have her wrestle. There's only, and this is just my opinion, but, I mean, there's only so many cat fights we can watch between, you know, Lana and Summer Rae before it's just like, oh, okay, that again. And, you know, and to have that, and because it's always Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev because they're the men, so also it's the predictable finish at the end of each Dolph Ziggler versus Rusev match where you know one of the girls is going to interfere, most likely Summer Rae, and then Lana's going to come in and, you know, do such and such, and then it's like, okay, and then a lot of people are invested in this storyline because, I mean, a lot of people love Lana. And then a lot of people love Dolph Ziggler, so I mean, perfect pairing. But at the same time, if they're not going to wrestle at Night of Champions, then I will be like Lana. And if Lana and Summer, like, there's 3 weeks until Night of Champions, so there's still 3 more Raws for us to get answers on everything that's going on. You know, but at the end of the day, it's like if Lana and Summer Rae don't wrestle at Night of Champions, then I'm not going to be invested anymore because this has been going on, you know, pretty much since after WrestleMania, like the Raw or the week after WrestleMania, and that's been a couple months now. So the fact that you've had her been in plenty of cat fights with Summer Rae now, but you haven't had her wrestle, it's eventually going to get tired out and boring. And then, you know, later on, we would have the thing, you know, obviously with Dolph Ziggler going into his locker room and taking a shower, and Summer Rae would sneak in there, and then, you know, Lana would find out and see it, and then what was going on, you know, Summer Rae saw him naked and all that stuff, and which, I mean, was interesting. Me personally, like, I thought it added a story, like, at least you got, you know, a story to something, like, it's not just, you know, oh, Lana broke up with Rusev and now he's jealous. Now there's more stuff to it. Summer Rae tried to go in there and, you know, have sex with Dolph Ziggler or, you know, see him naked, whatever the case may be. Now Lana has even more reason to hate either Dolph Ziggler or Lana because now we don't know what she's feeling, right? So it adds more interest. It adds more story, and it adds more like spice or heat to the whole storyline, rather it just being Rusev's jealous because Lana has a new boyfriend. And so I guess that part of it obviously it definitely helped. But then at the same time, that also you could say that would be a setup for a future. We can also, but we'll obviously get our answers like on SmackDown and Raw. But could that have been like the setup for Lana versus Summer Rae at Night of Champions, or even sometime in the future in general? Because I mean, Summer Rae snuck into her boyfriend's shower and tried to see him naked and all that stuff, and talked about how sexy he was and all that. But that was pretty much it. But at least I would rather see that a million times. At least something that has a story and that has, you know, something to do with something than just seeing a match because it's a match and seeing the same match every Raw and every SmackDown. So, but that's pretty much what happened with Dolph Ziggler and Lana and Rusev and Summer Rae on Raw. And then after that, we would get into some divas with Becky Lynch versus Alicia Fox, you know, in a beat the clock challenge. Haven't seen one of those in a while. Almost forgot they existed. As soon as I heard this, okay, I knew it was gonna be like a way to get as many, have, you know, plenty of divas matches or get them on TV. But at the same time, the matches are going to suffer because they're always looking at the clock. They're always going for pins, one after another, pin, and they're trying to rush the match. And then ultimately, all the matches are going to be really short because it's a beat the clock challenge. You're supposed to be as short as possible, and then which kind of just makes the whole Divas Revolution thing seem useless, because part of the whole Divas Revolution thing was to give divas more time, to give divas, I mean, and obviously I'm not saying, okay, they had a beat the clock challenge this week, so that means that they're only going to get 3 minutes. They're going back to how it used to be where they get 3 minutes every week. No, but it just makes it weird. Yeah, you get a number one contender match, whoever wins, but I mean, this match between Becky Lynch and Alicia Fox, really nothing to talk about. Becky Lynch obviously goes over and she wins the match in 3 minutes and 21 seconds, and so that tells you already, okay, a 3 minute, 21-second match. And then it's all about Paige, Charlotte, and Becky. Paige, Charlotte, and Becky are the only ones competing in this beat the clock challenge, and I'm kind of like, okay, well, where's Sasha Banks in all this? You know, Naomi and Tamina, they've had, you know, their title shots. I mean, still really to this day, they're not over. I mean, the crowd isn't invested in them, especially since Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha Banks came up to the main roster. They're even more, you know, like the fans are more on them now more than ever. And Naomi and Tamina are kind of more secluded than ever. And I get why, in a way, they put Sasha Banks with Naomi and Tamina, because with the whole tag team thing that they did, you know, she has to be with somebody. But with someone who is as good as Sasha Banks and who is over, I mean, I'm not trying to make it seem like she's like the most over thing ever, but I mean, the crowd loves her, obviously. And I mean, the fact that she wasn't even a part of like this number one contenders match thing was kind of dumb to me, because, you know, obviously the crowd would either like to see Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, or Charlotte take that, and Paige has had plenty of title shots, so the fact that she was a part of it, and like it was just like all about Paige, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. Anyway, Becky Lynch wins the match in 3 minutes and 21 seconds, and that was it. And then they would go into another match later on with Charlotte versus Brie Bella, and that match was just that was stupid. It was just stupid. I mean, because it, and not because it was they're bad wrestlers or anything. It was stupid because it's a beat the clock sprint thing, and Brie Bella was literally just running away from Charlotte pretty much the majority of the match, but eventually Charlotte caught up to her, and then she wins in 1 minute and 40 seconds. And so then that was a 1 minute and 40-second match. Charlotte wins. Becky Lynch now is not the number one contender. Charlotte is. And then Paige would go on to have a match against Sasha Banks, which was which I was like, okay, you're going to have Sasha Banks versus Paige in a minute and 40-second match. Obviously, that's not going to happen because they're not going to have someone like Sasha Banks lose in a minute and 40 seconds. And it's already been rumored plenty of times that I've heard that Charlotte was going to be, the one to take the title from Nikki after she beats AJ Lee's reign, which is obviously what the Bellas are all about right now, even though they won't flat out come out and say it anymore because AJ Lee has retired and the whole affiliation with CM Punk. But that's obviously what their whole, the whole Bellatron thing where it's literally rubbing in the fans' face where like, hey, 14 days and this many hours and this many seconds until I beat AJ Lee's reign. And then every time the Bellas are, come out, that's what you hear on commentary. It's Michael Cole saying, Nikki Bella's been the champion for this long until she defeat AJ Lee's reign, blah, 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 blah. So that's basically what the Bellas are about right now, is this making sure that they defeat AJ Lee's reign because they don't want AJ Lee to be the longest reigning champion anymore. But, so you have Paige versus Sasha Banks in a match with, that was a minute 40 seconds. Paige actually hits one of her finishes on Sasha, but, with the help, she rolls out of the ring and, Tamina and Naomi also help her roll out, and obviously Paige doesn't get the job done. I almost thought for a split second that we would see a heel turn from Paige just by her facial reaction. It kind of looked like for a second she shrugged off Charlotte. Maybe that was just like, I don't know, maybe that was just me, thinking that, but it almost looked like she shrugged off Charlotte, but that wasn't the case. But I almost thought we could see a heel turn, where Paige is gets credit for starting the Divas, like storyline anyway, is the one who started the Divas Revolution, and then Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch and Charlotte come up and they get to the title match and not me. I almost thought we were about to see a heel turn from Paige, but and we still could get a heel turn from Paige. You never know. Like I said, it's still 3 weeks until the Night of Champions, but as of tonight, it didn't happen. And and the whole Divas thing, like, I feel like I'm always saying, like, okay, well, if this happens, then what happens after that? Like, because you have to have a next chapter in your story. Like, because I don't really like where, like, that's my main thing, like, Sasha Banks, like, where she's at with, like, the whole Team Bad thing, it just doesn't really fit, doesn't really make sense. And I just feel like, if Charlotte, which I'm pretty sure, I would probably bet on Charlotte, winning the Divas title at Night of Champions. Like, if Charlotte, because by then, Nikki would have beaten AJ Lee's record, WWE got what they wanted, and now they can move on with the, like, the Divas that matter. And then, so, like, if Charlotte doesn't win the title, does she go on to Sasha Banks? Does she go on to Paige, who maybe turns heel? Like, what happens? Like, who does she face? Because, like, they're all best friends, Paige and Becky Lynch, but then that only leaves, Sasha Banks, Naomi, and then Tamina, and then maybe a Bella's rematch. But, nobody really would want to see that anyway. But, I don't know. But that's what went down with the Divas tonight. And then we have, Ryback versus Big Show in an Intercontinental Championship match, which really it was not a good match. Like, I really don't think, and it's not just because, like, they're two big guys, they're two powerhouses or anything. It's not even just because of that, but, like, it just wasn't a good match, period. Like, and I don't know if it's just Ryback and Big Show that just can't have good matches together, because we've seen Ryback have good matches and we've seen Big Show have good matches, but at the end of the day, this just wasn't a good match. The Triple Threat at SummerSlam wasn't a good match. The matches they've had before was not a good match. And how many times in the last, like, before Ryback had the staph infection, and even now since he's came back, how many times have we seen either Ryback versus Big Show or Ryback versus Miz or Big Show versus Miz? Like, how many times are we going to see this match before you say, hey, I think they've had enough of this match, or it's finally getting boring? And then at the end of the day, there's not even a story behind it. Like, what they just don't like each other. Big Show sees Ryback as the Intercontinental Champion, and he's a big guy, and Big Show's a big guy, so they're two big guys who hate each other. Is that the story? Because it's not a good one, and it's really not getting us invested. And also, like, where does the Miz even fit into all this? Because he was out there on commentary. He would, somewhat interfere in the match and help Ryback. And it's just like, I mean, like, this is done. Like, I was hoping after SummerSlam that would be done after he won, but apparently not. I mean, I'm wondering if it's just because they have no one to work with Ryback. Like, are they just continuing on with Big Show and Miz and Ryback because there's no one to work with? There's not enough people who are, which is a problem, not just with the IC title, but just with the company in general. They have a lot of great talent, just they haven't worked on, none of them are over, and because they haven't really put them in a position to be like that. Like, there was plenty of people tonight who weren't even on Raw, like Sheamus or Randy Orton. I mean, who Randy Orton's already over, but still, Sheamus wasn't on Raw. Randy Orton wasn't on Raw. Neville wasn't on Raw. Stardust wasn't on Raw. And it's just like, I mean, do you not have anybody else to work with Ryback? Is that why we're continuing with Big Show and Miz? Because this is getting boring. It's stuff like this that why people just automatically assume, in which they're probably in the right to assume, that the IC title and even the United States title really mean nothing. It's because this is the kind of stuff you really do with it. You just put them in the same matches, and then on Raw nonetheless. You don't even try to build it up until Night of Champions, which is the pay-per-view where every title is on the line. That's the whole gimmick behind the pay-per-view, is that every title will be defended. So then you have a title match on Raw where you don't even try and build it up and put a better story behind it somehow, some way, to get people invested for another Big Show Ryback match, but you put it on Raw, so now we've already seen it. And even if it's like Ryback versus Miz at Night of Champions, or even another triple threat match, like I said before, nobody's really invested into it. We've seen it more than on one occasion, and it's just, and at the end of the day, they're not even good matches to begin with. And then we'd get Kevin Owens versus Cesaro. And that's another thing. I mean, they really didn't have many matches one-on-one, but yet they still had matches where they were affiliated with each other. Like, it would be Kevin Owens and Sheamus versus Randy Orton and Cesaro. How we saw that match a lot. And then we saw the match with them at SummerSlam. And then they have another rematch on Raw, but for no reason. They're just having a rematch. Did Cesaro want another like, what is the story behind that? Like, we're getting rematches from SummerSlam, from previous Raws and previous SmackDowns, ultimately for no reason. And when we have matches, especially rematches, I mean, it would somewhat be okay if it's a match we've never seen before between two superstars who've never faced each other before. But to have, a rematch, just to have a rematch, it's just dumb. Nobody's investing into it because there's no story behind it to get invested in. And then, but don't get me wrong, the match between Kevin Owens and Cesaro was, like, good. It was really, in terms of wrestling, from a wrestling point of view, the match in and of itself was good. I mean, two people like Kevin Owens and Cesaro are never going to have a bad match with each other. But it wasn't, exciting because we weren't invested into it, because we saw it at SummerSlam and there was no story behind this. Why do these two guys even hate each other? Because, I mean, they're jealous of each other. I mean, what is it? They just hate each other because one's a good guy and one's a bad guy, and so naturally they hate each other. I mean, it doesn't really make sense, but the match in and of itself was good. And my question is, what's next? Kevin Owens beat Cesaro. I mean, they did the thing where Cesaro, bumped his ribs on the announce table. So throughout the rest of the match, towards the end, he bumped his ribs on the announce table, so he was hurt. And Kevin Owens would take advantage of that, and he would win the match. So he won the match clean. It wasn't like Kevin Owens cheated to win. He won the match clean. It was just Cesaro got, storyline injured. So you got to wonder, like, okay, well, Kevin Owens won twice now. Does that mean Kevin Owens moves on to somebody else? Does he get a run in for some title at Night of Champions? Like, obviously not, because, Ryback's continuing with Big Show and Miz, and John Cena is going for the U.S. title, and Sting's with the WWE title, unless Kevin Owens goes for the Divas title, which obviously isn't going to happen. Um, like you can't keep continuing with Cesaro and Kevin Owens now, because Kevin Owens has 2 wins over Cesaro, one of them being on Raw, one of them being on SummerSlam, and there's ultimately no story behind it, like, besides maybe that they're jealous of each other. But at the end of the day, it's not like they're open about that. They don't tell the story on commentary, so they're just having matches, just to have matches and to show their talents, I guess. I mean, it's kind of dumb to me, and we've seen this match now a few times, with tags and all that stuff. So, I mean, nobody's even really invested. They're invested in the superstars themselves, because they know what a talent Kevin Owens is, and they know how good of a talent Cesaro is. But they're, in terms of the rivalry in and of itself, it's really not a rivalry, because there's no story to back it up. And then we go into Braun Strowman and his debut, and I think that's his name. It's a weird name. Braun Strowman, and the black sheep of the Wyatt family. And this dude is huge. I mean, he's freaking huge. He legit makes Roman Reigns look small, and we all know he's not small. And he would debut. Roman Reigns would be at ringside. Obviously, the other members of the Wyatt family were at ringside, and it was Braun Strowman versus Dean Ambrose. Dean Ambrose couldn't do anything. Not once did this dude fall on his feet. He didn't take one bump, didn't fall, didn't get hurt, nothing. This dude was just running through Dean Ambrose like it was nothing. And then he would push later, a little bit into the match. He would go out to the outside and push Roman Reigns, and then Roman Reigns would come, like, I think he hit him with a clothesline or a Superman punch or something. And then he would just, and I think it was really cool how, like, Bray Wyatt just, like, knows that this dude is just going to run through these guys like it's nothing, because Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt didn't even move a muscle not once to try and go help him. Like, they just knew this guy was so beast that he was just going to run through these guys like it was nothing, and he did. He just destroyed Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose, which was awesome. I mean, this dude is pretty huge, and the match would end in DQ, which would give Braun the win. And I mean, the only question, which is pretty good. This dude is freaking destroying people, which is always cool to see. And the fact that Bray and Luke just know that he's just gonna go out there and destroy people is also cool. But my thing is, if this rivalry is gonna continue with Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and with the new Wyatt family, it's 2-on-3. And with Braun Strowman, obviously they're not going to win, and it wouldn't be believable, because Braun has taken out both guys by himself. So in these next couple of weeks, does Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns go out and find their third member, their third guy to deal with Braun Strowman, while Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns take care of the other two? Or do they try and go at it in a handicap, which would make no kind of sense at all? But that's kind of what I'm predicting, and that the only thing that would make sense and be interesting to watch and make this rivalry interesting again, because they brought this Braun Strowman guy who's a freaking monster destroying people. So only thing I could see is Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose bringing in a third member to their team who can deal with him. So I guess another monster, but I mean, it's interesting to see and how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. Then we get the return of the Dudley Boyz, New Day versus the Dudleys. New Day comes out. Doing what New Day does, always coming out, usually with a promo, talking about almost like a charity for tables. You know, they're starting a charity for tables where we got to save all the tables in the world, and they had the last table in the building, which was wrapped in bubble wrap, which like that would really stop. Even if you left the bubble wrap on, like that would really stop somebody from going through a table if they tried. Like it's that kind of comedy that makes it funny, but then at the same time they have really good matches, which makes it like the whole sarcastic thing. Like you're just playing with it, you know. It's awesome. I like what New Day is doing. It's like they're taking this stereotypical gimmick and like almost being sarcastic with it because they know that in the ring they can back it up, and it's just all around funny. Xavier Woods with some straight hair, really didn't expect that coming because I also watch his YouTube channel, and he always he posted like right before I saw Raw. He uploaded a video like a couple of hours ago, you know, with his fro. And he walks out on Raw with some straight hair, which, I mean, didn't really necessarily look bad. It would just caught me off guard. But anyway, we get the Dudleys versus New Day. New Day talking about saving the tables. And I don't get why, and primetime players would also be out there on commentary, you know, Titus talking about what Titus talks about. And my thing is, why, if the Dudleys are, even if you throw in primetime players into the equation to where it's New Day versus Dudleys versus primetime players for the tag team titles, because they are, you know, owed a rematch because, you know, the rematch clause, and it's like, why would you have on Raw, even if it's not for the titles, it's still the match in and of itself, the Dudleys versus New Day. We saw Dudleys versus Ascension on SmackDown, but Dudleys versus New Day, and Dudleys are getting a tag team title match at Night of Champions versus New Day. So why would you, you know, show the match? You know what I'm saying? Why don't you have them, you know, feud, you know, have the Dudleys, you know, in random tag matches with, you know, Los Matadores or whoever. Have New Day come out and interfere and break up the match, and then, you know, whatever. Do what they did tonight, you know, have the Dudleys tease, you know, put in New Day through a table. And then by the time Night of Champions come, you're invested into the tag team title match. And it's just like, we saw a straight up tag match between the Dudleys and New Day tonight. So now it's like, okay, well, what's in store for Night of Champions? You know, you've pretty much shown us everything now. Even if they have a better match at Night of Champions, now we can always say, well, we already saw you wrestle on Raw, so even though you had a better match tonight, you know, you've still wrestled before. And the Dudleys won, so it's like, you know, and then they would tease, you know, going through that bubble-wrapped table, and then, you know, Woods would pull them out and everything. But I mean, that was actually a pretty good match, and it was actually the main event. Which was kind of weird. Haven't seen the whole tag team division have the main event. Obviously, the whole Seth Rollins and John Cena promo, I mean, would come on after that. Which that's like, I think 2 weeks in a row now, where the main event or the last thing we see is a promo. So not only do we open Raw with promos and segments, now we're closing Raw with promos and segments. So now that's kind of weird, and I don't know what that's about, but that was actually the main event. It was a good match between the Dudleys and New Day, but then, like, you got to wonder, okay, well, what's left, even if you throw in primetime players, what's left when it comes to Night of Champions? And then last was Seth Rollins calls out Sting, and it's all about the statue and Triple H, essentially, until John Cena would come out. It's about Seth Rollins wanting his statue back. That resembles the greatness that he is, and it's not just him, it's about every legend who's held the WWE title and all that other stuff. And Stephanie would go on to say, you know, you need to stop. If you know what's good for you, you need to stop, you know, comparing yourself to Triple H and saying that you're better than him. And, you know, Seth would go on to defend himself and go, well, you know, Triple H used to be the leader of Evolution, and at that time, he was the man, and if someone compared him to Ric Flair, Triple H would get pissed off. And so right now, Seth Rollins is the man, and if you compare him to Triple H, he's going to get pissed off, which was actually, you would think that would be a heel thing to say, but if you really think about it, that makes, perfect sense. But I mean, and then John Cena would come out and, say what John Cena says, but then eventually, invoke his rematch. He would say, you think the authority is your friend, you think they're doing what's good for you, but at the end of the day, they're doing what's best for themselves and what's best for business. If you don't believe me, ask Batista, ask Randy Orton, ask, all these other guys. And then he would, then that would lead into him talking about the U.S. title. It's Night of Champions. Every title's on the line, so we obviously saw it coming. John Cena invokes his rematch clause. Stephanie says yes. Seth Rollins gets pissed off. So we got the rematch confirmed at Night of Champions. It's going to be Seth Rollins versus John Cena in the rematch for the U.S. title. And Sting versus Seth Rollins for the WWE title. So 2 Seth Rollins matches in one night, both for titles. I'm kind of curious though, especially with Sheamus not being on tonight's Raw. I wonder if they're what if they did, and this is probably me thinking too much about it, but what if they didn't have him on the next couple of Raws, and then they have, Sheamus kind of show up, because I don't see them having Sting WWE champion. Plenty of people do think that, Seth Rollins should hold the title until WrestleMania. But at the same time, they're almost teasing an authority breakup. And, I mean, they're not really, because we've seen them do that before, months ago, and it never happened. But, still, you always got to wonder, well, hey, it seems like Stephanie, just keeps giving me these matches that puts me in jeopardy, and all that stuff. But like I said, that could be looking too much into it. We'll obviously get more information over the next couple of weeks. But what if Sheamus did cash in at Night of Champions? So then John Cena walks out with the U.S. title, which I'm pretty sure that's what will happen. Just because, he was having good matches with every single week for the U.S. title. Even though you knew he was going to win, he was still having good matches with whoever it was that week. And then it was starting to actually make the U.S. title mean something. And then you have Seth Rollins versus Sting. I don't see WWE putting, the WWE title, even though everybody loves Sting, I don't see them putting, the WWE title on a 55-year-old Sting who was a former TNA and WCW champion, which in my opinion has nothing to do with anything. But, we've seen what WCW's done. WWE has done in the past. It almost makes it seem, that's what the whole Triple H and Sting rivalry was about, was Triple H finally getting rid of the last soldier of WCW. But what if Sheamus cashed in to where now Seth Rollins goes in with 2 titles, walks out with no titles, and I don't know, that would just be kind of interesting. But that was tonight's Raw. My name is Josh Hunter here at Beast Wrestling Reviews. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And let me know what you think of tonight's Raw. Let me know what you thought of this review. And also, let me know what you think we're going to see at Night of Champions. And on the following SmackDowns, which I do review NXT and SmackDown and all pay-per-views as well. And just, let me know all your opinions on anything I had to say tonight about tonight's Raw. And, yeah.